What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. Athletor Podcast coming at you. Vito Arujau is in the house today, and man, he's got such an interesting story. Immigrating from Russia to the United States, moving from California to New York, growing up with a dad that was a world champion, Olympic medalist, having him as a coach and what that looked like on a day-to-day basis. Then he talks about the switch that he made and how he jumped levels once he got to Cornell and took some ownership of what he was doing on a wrestling mat. All that and more coming at you. Athletor Podcast. Don't go nowhere. Athletor Podcast, Vito Arujau, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us. And before we turn the mics on, we were talking about the absurdity that is international wrestling. I'm going to start this off by asking you, because you do have Russian descent. Your dad's from Azerbaijan, yes?
Yes, he's from, but he wrestled for Russia.
USSR, right. Cold spray or no cold spray?
Is that the question?
That's the question.
Personally, I'm not a big user of cold spray, but I understand that it's found its way into a cultural niche. A lot of people live and die by cold spray, but
they sure do. They sure do. But no, look, what's that?
We were just talking about they did try to cold spray my hand at Worlds when my finger
really?
got up. And I was like, well,
and did you say no?
They just I was like, because my finger was dislocated, and I was like, the trainers came onto the mat. I was like, put my finger back in, and they cold sprayed it. And I was like, no, put my finger back in.
I need it to look regular, man. I need it to look regular.
Yeah.
So great. And they stabbed you with a scissor. You want to tell us about that or no?
Yeah. So I mean, my third, fourth place match at the World Championships that just happened. I had Aguyev, previous Olympic champ, world champ. So big match, and then I took him down, and my finger dislocated again. As to why for the podcast, I recently had finger surgery. Let's see if you guys can see. Yeah. I recently had finger surgery back in November after I got back from Worlds, but it was dislocating a bunch. I tore a bunch of ligaments in it. So during that match, it popped out, and immediately the trainers come out to the mat, and pretty regularly I was having my trainer just at practice. I would pop it out and be like, hey, scar, give him my hand, he'd pop it back in, I'd go back to wrestling. But trainer came out, I was like, put it back in. And first they hit me with cold spray, and I was like, no, just pull my finger. Just pull my fingers, put it back in. And then they proceed to start twisting it, trying to find out what's wrong. And I'm like, ow, but it's dislocated. Can you have to pull it. But there was I imagine there was some sort of language barrier, maybe. It's Albania. So I'm like, put my finger back. I probably should have led with my finger is dislocated, but I'm saying put it back in, and they had no idea what I'm saying. So they're twisting my finger, and I'm like, ow. And then they were like, we don't know what's wrong. We have to take your tape off. Okay, take the tape off. So this lady comes running onto the mat with a pair of scissors, but it's not like athletic trainer scissors that are curved at the top. They're pointy. They're like shears. So she just lines it up with my tape and just jams in and stabs me in the hand with the pointy scissor. And I freak out because I just got stabbed.
Just got stabbed in the hand.
A little bit, yeah. So I kind of freaked out, took the scissors from her. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And then the guy got mad at me for taking the scissors. And then within this whole debacle, finally the USA trainer, they were holding him at the gate, you can't go. And in the tunnel, they were like, you can't go out on the mat. And he slipped past them, ran out onto the mat. And I was like, thank God, my finger is out, put it back in. stood up 2 seconds. He popped it back in, and he's like, "I'm gonna tape you back up." I was like, "Please do." Like it was just such
Yes, please.
a bit of a nightmare, but it was funny. I mean, now past the
Makes a good
moment.
story now. We got the
Yeah,
story on the podcast. That's all that matters.
but yeah,
That's
that was.
great stuff, dude.
Oh
So
no,
look,
I don't necessarily use cold spray very often, but I did get cold
good.
spray.
Okay. I was just goofing. No, I don't know. I've never seen cold spray anywhere else but Eastern Europe on a wrestling mat. I've never seen it come up ever. Like there's never been a point where I took one of my kids to the doctor or to the hospital and they're like, "Oh, all you need is a little bit of this." Yeah, you're good. Like it's just so ridiculous. It's just
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
And I've heard that like dudes have had bad reactions to it. Like somebody told me that like KJ or somebody has like dead parts of his skin from as much like they used to spray it on him so much. Like I don't
yeah.
know. Could be
I mean,
just insane.
who knows? I mean, I doubt they study that stuff. So
Something tells me jury's still out.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So we one of the things that we try to do on this podcast is get behind the processes, right? The things that make people the way that they are. And hey, don't go anywhere. It's Mike. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second. We got to pay the bills though. Do you have an athlete that's looking to break into the social media space? We at athletorlive.com have a brand new in-depth tutorial done by none other than Caden Henshaw. If you don't know who Caden is, he's not even a Division I wrestler, yet he's got hundreds of thousands of engaged followers. Learn how to create engaging content, grow your followers, and open up new opportunities in the NIL space. Go to athletorlive.com/Caden and we'll give you the first module completely free. It occurred to me that I don't really know your experience of how you came about wrestling, right? So obviously your dad's a world champion. Obviously, you made the Olympic team. He was Olympic bronze. So wrestling's in your blood. But did you start off at like 2 years old, like people would think? How did you start this sport?
yeah. No, definitely. Kind of a story, but I get that. That's what we're here for. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no. So, growing up, when I was like 1.5, almost 2 years old, is when we moved from Russia over to the U.S. So, we were living out in Belarus, so like kind of bouncing back between like Russia and Belarus, and eventually we end up moving out to the U.S. Right. So, my mom actually won a green card in like a lottery. Is kind of how it happened.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So total
Hmm.
fate type of thing. Got a green card, went out, and then a couple months later we followed her out there. But we moved out to California first. We were
Up by
living in
Lassen, right?
Yeah, we were living in I think it was called Susanville,
Uh-huh.
small town. Um, so we were living there for a little bit. My dad was helping out at Lansing College, and then
Mhm.
I'm a kid, so the timeline might be a little fuzzy, but
Sure.
we ended up moving out to New York City. Um, so we moved and we were living in probably like, I want to say like Queens for like a
Mhm.
little bit. And then we moved out to Brooklyn. And then eventually we moved out onto Long Island, which is where, we kind of set up roots in Syosset, which is in Nassau County. And then, by the time we got to Syosset, I think I was in first or second grade.
Mhm.
So I don't really know how old I was at the time, but from then on, until I graduated high school, I lived in Syosset. So uh,
Mhm.
we did a bunch of bouncing around, and because of that, like we never really got to the point where we kind of settled. And my dad had a gym, and he like was able to teach us because he was working, trying to make money. Because
Mhm.
I mean, uh, we actually immigrated to the country with very little. Um, it
Mhm.
was kind of one of those things where we kind of left. I mean, we came to the U.S. From my parents' perspective, with like two bags, like two checked bags, and like $200.
Really?
And they kind of like, my dad worked and my mom worked, and they kind of slowly built up a little bit, and then we got connected with some really good people. And wrestling is a really tight knit thing in the U.S., which is really cool because my dad moved in to California, and then somebody from New York heard about it and was like, "No, I want to move him out and his whole family out to teach my son." And that's what he helped us with moving to New York. And my mom is a fashion designer, so she loved the idea of moving to New York City, where fashion's kind of a really big thing. So kind of all worked out. And eventually we set up roots in Syosset, and that's kind of when my dad started out with training this guy's kid. And then this guy's friend had a kid who was about the same age, so they trained together. And then they were the same age as Nick, my older brother, so they all started training together. And slowly, one by one, it kind of grew to the point where, I mean, well, these guys were winning because my dad was coaching them. And other people saw and they wanted to join. And it kind of grew to this point where my dad opened up his own gym, because we were just training out of, it was the two families kind of, we were training out of their basements. It was just
Mhm.
my dad would bring Nick. He would be the training partner, and I would come, and just because he had to babysit me.
Right.
So I would just be running around the basement and stuff, and my dad would be running a practice for the kids. And then eventually it got to a point where we opened up a gym, and then more kids started coming. And that's kind of when we moved to the location that we were. Well, I kind of started practicing, but just because like when I
In the
when that
basements?
well, kind of, but not really. Like a little bit.
Right.
Like
Just goofing around.
like I'm there already. Like sometimes I wrestled, sometimes I didn't.
Mhm.
Um, the point where I actually was like, now I wrestle, because I like tried playing like soccer, like I tried like swimming, I tried doing like other like normal things, and then eventually I was just like, well, he's not good at anything, but he's got to wrestle. So, um,
I
uh,
can't imagine your dad would be that blunt. That's weird.
so, and I mean, in fairness, right? Now that I have now that I'm old enough, I can understand. It's kind of like, you know, it's the only thing he really can give, is
Sure.
his vast knowledge of wrestling. I mean, that's kind of what he devoted his whole life to, and he just kind of wanted to share that with us. So I mean, I started actually training full time. Like I went to school, I came home, I went to practice. Um, Probably fifth grade going into sixth grade. So I was probably around 10 years old. But like I said, it was so much moving, and then kind of like getting our feet under us. So to the point where it was eventually like we were set. So I started in like, yeah, like maybe fourth grade to fifth grade, fifth grade to sixth grade, something like that. And then my older brother started in eighth grade. Um, but so
Hmm.
started pretty late, because I mean, yeah, most people start when they're 4 or 5.
Right.
I've seen 3-year-olds rest on a wrestling mat, right?
Well,
But I
you say that, but I don't know that that's the best thing, right? Like, first of all, if you can keep it as fun as possible, it's okay, I think. But I think where we lose a lot of kids is they're especially like the ones that weren't like the dads that weren't real good. Those are the ones that I see pushing the hardest at a young age. And I know you saw that in New York. I know you did.
oh yeah, no, I 100% know what you're talking about. Um, and I tell people all the time, it's like, yeah, I started in 10th grade, and obviously I had amazing coaching from my dad. Um, but it took me, you know, I was very bad. I was very bad when I started. Like I'm talking about, like, like my dad has a whole gym now, and this is like my first year. Like obviously I look at it when I was a kid, but I didn't actually train. So when I first started wrestling, like I would go in and just, you know, get my ass beat every single day, because these kids have been wrestling for 4 years and I'm
Hmm.
just starting. So they're beating me up every day. Like I'm going home crying. I'm pretending that I'm sick so I can't go to practice. Like the classic 10-year-old, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, why would I willingly go get beat up? Like, this isn't fun.
Well, when you put it like that.
But eventually, pretty quickly, I realized I wasn't getting out of it. And then I was just like, okay, we should probably start trying to get better so I can stop getting my ass kicked. Um,
Seems like
but
a decent motivation.
yeah, right. Like little fight or flight, but that's fine. Uh, but yeah, like as a 10-year-old, um, my mind and my body control is far superior than that of a 3-year-old, right? So
Sure.
the time it's going to take me to catch up to kind of everybody else is going to be much shorter than it take. Like all that you learn from 3 to 10, I can learn from 9 to 10.
Mm.
Because
Now, hold on a second. Wait, hold. First of all, having the wherewithal and having the broad scope understanding that you could do that because you are a little bit more mature even as a kid. Did someone explain that to you, or did that just kind of come to you? Did you like look at this at 10 years old and go, look, I can make serious gains here because I'm a little bit more mature. Yeah, they have experience, but I can make up this ground quickly because A, I have great coaching, but B, because I have this wherewithal that I can kind of hone in on what I really need to learn.
Yeah, I had none of that when I was 10.
Okay.
I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. No, I was literally just trying not to get beat up every day. But eventually, like, yeah, as I got older, I realized probably the reasoning for it was probably that, you know, one, yes, I had a coach that understood where I was at and drilled in the fundamentals. So that whole first year was just learning how to shoot, high crotch, sprawling, like single legs, double legs, high crotch, like front headlock, shot defense. And that's literally like how to get out on bottom, which I was not good at. But it was mostly those things, and it's just every single day, it's just those things. Um, to the point where it's like, this is stupid because you're a kid, you want to see something like
Yeah.
new, like you want to work on things, but it's like, I
Sure.
already know this, Dad. Why are we doing this? Like, no, you don't. You don't know this because you did it 10 times and all 10 reps looked different, right? So you don't
Right.
actually, you may know it, but you're far from mastering it, right? And that's like, we can sit here and talk about this, but it's because I've gone through the whole cycle now that I can reflect back. But as a 10-year-old, like I'm literally just like, I I sprawled 10 times and you told me 6 of them were wrong and I don't know why they were wrong. Right. Um,
Right.
but eventually you're gonna tell me some of them were good and I'm gonna try to do it like that again. And maybe eventually like it will become muscle memory and then I can just do it good. But
Mhm.
like I don't know what's good and not what's not good. I
Right.
don't know why it's good and why it's bad. Right.
Right.
Like super highly, I wasn't a very highly mature or developed kid. I was literally just kind of
Right.
doing what my dad told me and it worked out. But those early development years were definitely, as I look back, they were huge because I mean, I started, like I said, like fifth grade to sixth grade, uh got beat up fifth grade to sixth grade, sixth grade to seventh grade. um but then things just started clicking for me. I can't necessarily put finger on it because it's 15 years ago or something. But
Sure.
um, seventh grade to eighth grade, things started like doing better. And then by eighth grade, I'm in the state finals against Yanni. So there was definitely a really sharp incline. Um,
Right. Now, is that how you met Yanni? Like, or did you guys have a relationship beforehand? Because I know you would like go up there and start training with him every once in a while too, right?
yeah, that wasn't until after we so actually funny enough, if he if you ask him, he remembers wrestling me in that like 6th grade to 7th grade year, and he just
Mhm.
like beat me in like 5 seconds.
Mhm.
Um, and then we wrestled again in 8th grade. At seventh grade going into 8th grade, we wrestled in like the Super 32 like middle school division.
Mhm.
Um, and we met in the semis, and he was like, "Oh, I wrestled this kid like a year ago," and I like or 2 years ago, and I like wrapped him up like he's not good. And then we had like a 9-8 match. Um, I think I fired him into his back, and he cradled me, and it was kind of back and forth. Um, and then we met again at the state finals. And then after that is kind of when our dads kind of talked, and we're like, "Ooh, we should probably just train together." Because they're
Mhm.
same size and they're both really good. Like this would be good for them, in the future, which turned out pretty good call. So,
As it turns out, you
yeah.
know.
Um, and then yeah, we started training together after we'd wrestled in 8th grade, and then we trained together all throughout high school, and then obviously went to
But you
college
guys
together.
weren't like close, like in proximity to one another. Like, what did that look like? Did your dads just get together and be like, "All right, send you upstate for the week"?
Yeah, it was just so he lives up in Rochester. I live on Long Island. It's like 6, 7 hours
Mhm.
drive. Yeah, New York's bigger than you think. From
Yeah.
corner to so it would be like I'd go up there for a week or a weekend, or if we had some time off, I'd go up there for a week. He'd come down here for a week, and we just get some good training in, or like you know it'd be like we go to a tournament together, and we go different weights and stuff, and we wrestle together, um, kind of there. But it was just it was good. We stayed in touch, and it was definitely pretty beneficial. And I think our dads got along together, which was definitely
Sure.
helped.
No, yeah, that obviously, yeah, that doesn't make things any harder. That's good. What were the training sessions like when you were in high school when you would get together with Yanni? Would you guys kind of be left to your own devices to get better, or was like Mr. D and your dad getting after him? Yeah.
No, no, no. I mean, honestly, I don't even know if my dad would let me do that now. I don't think he's. No, it's funny, but no, it was definitely a lot of structure. It'd be like high crotches would be the focus, but then like the setup maybe was up to us, or the hand fight leading up to it is kind of like improvised, sparred out. And then obviously like maybe like some the finishes, like maybe the guy gives you a little bit of a defense. So it's a little bit of a mix of like a spar and like the drill, but honestly, a lot of that came later on. You know, senior year of high school, college is when we started like actually, you know, understanding how to spar out positions correctly, or at least I did. Um,
Mhm.
because but just getting reps, good reps, and then obviously wrestling live with someone. Um, we did a lot of live. I looking back, it's like I honestly don't know how. I wrestled so much live as a kid. I remember my dad. We would do so. The structure of our practices at VHW, where my dad's gym. We come in, do a little warm up, 10, 15 minutes of just like jogging, front rolls, back rolls, cartwheels, handstands, like all that stuff. A little stretch. We come in, we do high crotches, single leg finish on the ground. Then single leg, he sprawls, cut corner to a double. Then we would do double legs. Then we would go fake snap, front headlock, run behind. And then it would kind of split into something else, kind of what we were doing that day. So it might have been like
Mhm.
fireman, or it might have been like 2-on-1, underhook. That was kind of like the portion of like we're learning.
Yeah.
Um, and then that drill, that technique session would be about an hour, and then we would do 30 minutes of live. But that could be minute goes situations, like one guy's on a high crotch, one guy's whatever. We could just be doing matches, um and then maybe we do some conditioning at the end. Rope climbs, pull-ups, push-ups, whatever. whatever he was kind of feeling that day.
Sure.
Yeah, that was kind
Wow.
of
Whatever torture he had in mind. Yes, I understand the
that
concept.
would be fine. Sometimes it'd be like, okay, go do 4 ropes. We come back like too fast. Go do 10 pull-ups. Too fast. Okay, go do bands. Like eventually you'll get tired. I'll be like, you can be done now.
All right.
But yeah, that was kind of
Where? Yeah, I mean that makes sense though, right? Like, because even now, like my son's not great yet, but one of the things that I'm starting to see is like he's starting to value all those reps on the basics that I tried my best to drill into his head as a kid. And so much so that like he has a drill today, right? He's supposed to be off today, but he's getting together with his buddy, and he's like, "How many single legs should I be doing?" I'm like, 50, right? Like it's just you need to get because he has to get better at his single leg. His high crotch is good, but he needs to get better at his single leg. And so like I'm like, you need to get 50 reps in, bud. Like, at least, and that could look different, right? Could look, snapping the hands, could be just level changing from free space. But he's starting to get the value of it, right? Like he's starting to understand, like, oh, yeah, I can do all this, leg pass and all, this kind of crap. But really, it comes down to position and executing. Like that's really all it kind of boils down to. And so it's cool to see like the progression. So I guess the question in there is, where did you see the biggest jumps in your levels of wrestling, and what do you kind of attribute it to?
so. I mean, I think it's a good question. I think when I was younger, uh, it was definitely like a little bit of physicality, of kind of mind shift, of just like you know aggression. Like I'm going to get this takedown. Like you can't stop me, kind of thing. Um, and then I ended up getting a really bad concussion, and I started
Mhm.
getting hurt, and I was like, okay, I can't just like be like a bull in a china shop. Like this isn't sustainable. I'm just it doesn't work. Um, and especially like as I'm older, I'm like that's not really like there's a certain level of etiquette in wrestling. Like I don't headbutt
Sure.
you in the like that's I'd appreciate that if you just tried to beat me with technique and strategy. But um, I think probably the biggest thing that helped me kind of jump levels um was when I got to college really. I was good in high school for a high school level. Um but a lot of it I really do just attribute to my dad kind of telling me what to do. I was more just like a little soldier and he was like go do
Yeah.
this and when you get to hear do this and he just told me what to do and I listened and I learned what was right because I just trusted him and he told me what to do and you know um when I got to high school, when I got to college is really when I started to change my thought process from just listening to actually thinking about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I
Mm.
I've started to like um my whole life really I've been like a little coaching. My dad has a gym, so I would do some private lessons here and there. Um, but really, what I'm looking for if I'm teaching a kid, right? Like especially like a young kid, because there's a certain level of like maturity that has to be there, right? Because
Mhm.
wrestling's a sport where um basically you have to want it, right?
Mhm.
It's not about what if your dad wants it or if people think you should win. It's really just about like do you want to win and like will you win? Um and to do that you have to look at like your tools, right? Your techniques and your conditioning and all that other stuff, but it boils down to where you're going to make the most jumps is when you kind of take ownership of it because what ultimately it boils down to it's a solo sport, right? It's just me out there, so I have to take responsibility for my own wrestling. I need to be like, I'm doing this for this, you know? Um, and ultimately that's going to shift you from a perspective of, you know, being your own coach. So like I was telling you earlier, right? When I was young, I'd do 10 reps. And my dad would tell me 6 of them were wrong. Right. And I'd be like,
Mhm.
no, it wasn't. Like I sprawled. That's what you asked me to do. But now, you know, when no one's watching me, if I have no coach looking at me, I can hit a high crotch and be like, that was a good high crotch or that was a bad high crotch. Right. But it's because I'm so critical of myself.
Mhm.
Right. So I'm trying to be the best version of myself that I can every time I hit a rep. Right. You're talking about how your son, he's gonna drill, he's gonna do 50 reps, right?
Mhm.
Where you see the most jump is when you do 50 reps. You yes, the work ethic and the hard work is there. You're doing the 50 reps, but the most jump is when you do 50 perfect reps, not just 50
Right.
reps. Is maybe and it comes from when you did 50 perfect reps, you know, not
Yeah.
just I'm just going through the motions. It's like it's mentally, right? I'm there, I'm active, and I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm engaged
Right.
the
Right.
action instead of just doing it, right? And I think that little jump is kind of what helped me make a large jump when I got to college. And then past that, maybe I mean 2 3 years ago now, I made another jump when I kind of started focusing on sports psychology and you know how to better control myself, um my emotional states, my responses, my self-talk. When I started to focus on that too, that was another kind of piece of the puzzle that was missing for me. um because it follows, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
young, I'm being told what to do, and I do it. I get to college, I start being like, okay, I'm telling myself what to do, but nobody's telling me what to do, so I don't really know what to do. I'm just kind of doing the things myself. And then I get to the point where I'm telling myself what to do. I know what's good to do, but like no one's watching me. So like maybe I make mistakes in other areas where I'm not thinking. And then I get to the point where now I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be aware of kind of everything. Watch
And
myself.
and does that encompass like the nutrition,
Yeah.
the strength training that encompasses everything? Is that correct?
Yes. So now I think I'm at a point where I'm my own coach all the time. Right. So
Mm.
uh I wake up in the morning and maybe I just lay in bed. Like now I'll think about wrestling. I get up, I go make something to eat. What am I going to eat to be good for practice so I can perform the best? Um, and some would say that's just kind of like dedicating your life to the sport, which it is, but it's also, and obviously like a higher level of dedication is probably going to give you a higher level of results. Um, but it's that constant, coaching yourself, being aware of what you're doing and and like I said, it takes like definitely a certain level of maturity. And, I don't do it perfectly all the time. No one's perfect. I definitely will sneak a piece of candy every once in a while, but
Sure.
now
Sure.
it's a different scale, right? Where, um, kind of bringing in that little margin of error.
That makes sense. But let me ask you this. Let's go back to when you got to college and you first started kind of being more critical and engaged with your
Sure.
own technique and tactics. Was that something that you realized immediately that you had to do on your own? Or was it like your dad going, hey man, you're gonna have to do this on your own? Or was it gray? It was just like, yeah, this is kind of up to you.
I think I attribute a lot of it to, I went to Cornell. I did a gap year. I wrestled as like a froggy, we call them. And then I came in my freshman year in 2019, um, and I wanted to go 33, and then I ended up losing the wrestle off to Chaz Tucker. Um, so and we didn't really have like a solid 25 pounder at the time, but I thought I was a 33 pounder. So at that point, my options were to like cut down to 25 or just be a backup. And I was just like, well, I guess I'm going 25 now. Um, and really the shift kind of came in where I realized like, you know, I'm the only one that's really in control. Like yes, like my coaches, like they're there for me and they want me to get better and they want me to succeed. But it's like it's different than your dad coaching you where he like, maybe the other guy's better than you, but he's gonna start you anyways. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Where it's kind of reality shock where it's like, no, like I have to do it because if I don't do it, then like it doesn't matter, kind of thing, right? Like why am I
Sure.
even really doing it? It was just like kind of like a shift in my mental of like, okay, like I live up here now at college, and my parents aren't like controlling my life, and I'm kind of the only one who can make these choices of what to eat and when to go to bed and what I'm doing at practice, right? Like because you do individual work at practice, but during broad practice, it's like everybody's doing the same thing. When I was little, maybe my dad would watch me and just like, constantly be giving me while he's doing the whole practice, but like that's less so now. Now I'm a part of like a big team, you know? So I need to
Yeah.
take responsibility for myself. Um, and I'm thankful that I learned that pretty early on in my college career. Um, because yeah, that's definitely
Because there are
important.
guys that don't ever figure that out. Period. Like you know that, right? Like there's a lot of guys that just don't figure out that they're the driver of the ship now. Like there's
Yeah.
not some dad's not going to put a foot in your ass to go to practice or pay attention during practice. Like a lot of guys don't figure that out.
Well, and they end up a lot of time they end up falling out of love with the sport, or maybe they never did love the sport, and they just
Yeah.
quit. Or, maybe they want to wrestle, but they make bad decisions in other aspects of their lives, and that ultimately affects them. Like maybe they drop out of school, and you see it a bunch. You see it a lot. You see it a lot happen a lot. Number one kids in the country who just like never pan out. Um, and it's because of that. So, I'm
Yeah.
definitely lucky that, it kind of worked out the way it did. Um, and Cornell is definitely very well equipped for that. And the fact that it's not like anyone's really holding my hand, you know, but they give me all the tools that I need to do it for myself. Um,
So there's a support system that if you need resources, you can utilize them. But at the end of the day, it's on you.
yeah. And I think that kind of comes from, obviously it's an Ivy League institution. Definitely expect a higher level of drive, like why would you come here if you didn't want to do it? You know?
Yeah.
Um, and just like maybe looking at academic side, why are you coming here majoring in biomedical engineering if you don't want to do it? You know, why wouldn't you just
It's a
go to
fair
like,
assessment. I mean, it really is. It's like, this is what you chose. Like, yeah, this is
yeah.
going to be hard.
So
No
I'm
shit.
assuming you're self motivated that you want to do it, because otherwise, like, what? Why are you still doing it? And I
Yeah.
think that kind of comes. We don't necessarily say that, but it's like I'd like to think that you understand that you're joining like a top 10 team in the country. You're self motivated. Um, which I was. I really wanted to win. I really wanted to be great. I had aspirations of being a world champ, being an Olympic champ. Um, and I took those tools, and obviously the coaches are very supportive in the fact that if I ask, hey, like I want to get a private lesson in, and can you come in at this time? Like they'll definitely drop what they're doing and come in and coach you. But it's not like they're like holding your hand where it's like, hey buddy, like I set up a partner for you, like, come in at this time. I'll come pick you up if you need me. Like, like it's not like that. I assume you're an adult and you can take care of yourself and you're gonna show up at this time when I tell you to show up, and um I think that's kind of what I needed when I got to Cornell, and that was definitely something that really helped me kind of grow over the years.
All right, you brought it up, going from 33 to 25. What is that like now? I mean, you win an NCAA title and you're a little bit banged up, but how much of the thought process to decide to not go to the Olympic team trials was because of the weight?
Yeah, it definitely played a factor. Obviously, um, I went up to 33 because the weight cut started to really drain me,
Sure.
physically, mentally, emotionally. I didn't like it anymore. I didn't like
Yeah.
wrestling. And it's not like I wasn't doing well. I, you know, took third at NCAAs. I lost in the finals at the Olympic trials to Gilman. I, took second at Final X to Gilman. Um, so I mean, I was successful, but I was most of my time in the week leading up to a match was spent losing weight. I'm talking about like I started my weight cut Monday for a match on Saturday. And
That's
the whole practice is dedicated not to hitting moves or anything. I'm just trying to move a lot so I can lose weight. I was wearing two t-shirts, a long sleeve, a crew neck, a hoodie, two pants, like just absurd stuff, right? And it's like looking back at it now, I don't know why I did that. Obviously I had to the first time to because I didn't have a starting spot. I had to go down to 25.
right.
And that's normal. That happens a lot in college, but that second year it was just like I did well, let me do it again. But that second year, my freshman and sophomore year split up with COVID. So I took 2 years off
Mhm.
from COVID. So I think over that time period, I started to mature physically and kind of over that, you know, 3 years, like it started to get more difficult. Um, and my sophomore year when I took third at NCAA's, and then when I lost to Gilman, and then finally when I went 0-1 at U23 Worlds that year, that was kind of like my breaking point where I was like, I'm not doing this again. Um, this is just, I'm losing all this weight, killing myself just to like lose. Like this is silly. And that's also the time where I started sports psych. And I attribute a lot of my success to that. But also going up a weight class really helped me focus on wrestling, which is the part that I enjoy, right? Like I didn't just sign up for wrestling because I liked losing weight. So
Sucks.
it gave me a lot more where, I was wrestling in a t-shirt and shorts and I was just focused on my technique. And, I was mentally engaged in practice and I was trying to get better. And I was doing all these things, and that is kind of where I started to enjoy what I was doing again. And I think just that alone played a huge role in that. I liked what I was doing. It was fun again,
Yeah.
so I definitely performed better. And then obviously I went on a little bit of a run. Um, things started clicking, and it turns out that was a great decision. Um, and then fast forward, after my last NCAs, I was banged up. I was definitely not healed. Even though I performed decently well, I still wasn't healed. I had two herniated discs in my neck. Um, and they were still there. I just like kind of found a way to wrestle around it for NCAAs. Um, and my stingers were going down my arm and kind of make me lose function in my hand.
Oh, it's miserable.
Bad stuff. Yeah. But the stingers ended up going away a little bit. Wrestled in perfect timing, really. Then I wrestled NCAs and I came back. But that turnaround period of 4 weeks was just not enough because as I started to come down, I was waking up maybe 132 um, for a couple days there. So I was within striking range. I had to lose 4 more pounds, and then I could probably hit it in 1 or 2 more workouts.
Mhm.
And that was probably a week out. I was right on track to make weight. It's just that my calories decreased a lot. I wasn't really eating as much as I was used to. I had limited water on the day, and then on top of that, my stingers started coming back. So now I'm like, well, you know, now I'm gonna make weight. I'm gonna be, really sucked out. Probably not gonna wrestle well already. And then on top of that, my left arm isn't gonna work. So I can do it. I can make the weight, but you know, I might hurt myself in the process. I hurt myself wrestling. Um, I can't imagine that I'm gonna win. And even if I
Mhm.
do win, somehow, I pull it out of somewhere, and I win. It's like, well,
Now
now
you got to
what?
do it again in August.
I'm gonna go to the Olympics. I'm gonna go to the ranking series in a couple weeks after that. With well, last chance. I had to go to last chance.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
and I was like, how am I gonna win last chance? I have one arm. So it was just uh bad timing. And I got hurt with the discs back in November, and it was just kind of I don't think I necessarily approached it correctly in the beginning. If I could go back, I might have changed a couple things, but you know, I had never experienced anything like that before. I'd never really
Oh, it's
damaged any.
scary. It's scary. It's a scary freaking thing, dude. There was a point where I couldn't feel these three fingers for about 2 years, and you start going, "What am I doing? What am
Yeah,
I doing?" It's not. It's really scary.
there was uh there was one match I wrestled during the season where I couldn't tilt my head to the left at that time, but the guy kept like head poking me and just giving me
Mhm.
like gave me 3 stingers in the first 5 seconds. And as the match goes on, you can see like my arm is literally hanging at my side and I can't pick it up. And he didn't know what was going on. If he did, he would have shot and tried to beat me. But, it just looks like I'm holding my arm to my side. But after the match, like for the entirety of the night, the drive back to Ithaca, I couldn't pick up my arm. Um, so it was definitely scary stuff that I was dealing with. And I was, at the time I was worried, am I doing like permanent damage? Like, am I never going to be able to wrestle again? Like outside of wrestling, am I like, just like, am I going to
Yeah.
feel like
Can I ever hold my kids ever? Because yeah, that was a thought.
it is scary, but, obviously we're far past that now. And it was definitely a tough decision to pull out, but I think I obviously made the right one, because there's also the aspect of, you know, as the US, we should send the best guy. And I'm almost
Mhm.
doing a service by taking a spot because I'm not the best guy.
Sure.
I'm vastly injured. Like
Yeah.
Lee did phenomenal,
Yeah.
like if Gilman went, I'm sure he would have done great, so it's like
Yeah.
they're they're probably going to outperform me when it comes to the Olympics. Just because
Yeah.
I'm so hurt. It's like I I stretch this out over another 6 months. It's like it's not
It's
gonna.
gonna get worse too. It's not gonna get. It ain't gonna get better, right? I mean, you're gonna have to continue to train, keep your weight down. It's not gonna get better. All right, we got to start wrapping this up. Here's our sprint. Don't think about these answers. Try and fire them off as quickly as possible. Here we go. Ready? Best wrestling shoe of all time.
They're in combat.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Okay. Well done. Well done. I got you. Okay. If you had a book that you could recommend to someone younger than you to read to kind of jump their levels, what book would it be?
Um, uh, Practical Sports Psychology by William Chandon.
All right. I love it. We'll put a link in the in our description. Okay. You only get four, and they got to be American, who's on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Jordan Burroughs, John Smith.
Mm-hmm.
We'll throw Dave on there,
Okay.
and then I mean Snyder. Yeah.
Okay. I like that one. Snyder's getting a lot more hits lately. And like, dude, 3 cycles? Like, wild.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay. Last one. You got a magic wand and you can change one thing about the sport of wrestling. What would it be?
You go back in time and you make it that we started wrestling freestyle from the beginning instead of folk style.
Yeah. It's the only way to do it. Like, I shouldn't say it's the only way to do it, but it seems like the cleanest way to do it, right? Like it's the cleanest way, because like people talk about changing over to freestyle. It's not that easy.
All of our
It's hard.
Is pointed at like
everything.
It's as simple as like we have ankle bands or like headgear, like all these things is like very directed towards folk style, like a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we would just like can't do it.
Yeah, you can't just immediately switch.
Step out rule in folk style. I would like a lot.
Dude, it makes so much sense. And that one you can do tomorrow with little to no difference.
And it would completely change. Like, there's no more running away. You want to run to the edge? You're just going to give me a point. And it's like we kind of already have it, but not really.
Yeah, but now there's this arbitrary ambiguity that goes along with a stall call that like it's not consistent at all at any level.
Yeah, make it a step out, or if it's grounded, like the equivalent of it is just like if this guy is out of bounds and I'm still in the circle, I get a point.
Yeah. Again, grounded is silly to me too, right? Like I don't like, is he in bounds or like just take all the ambiguity out of it. Is he out of bounds? Yes. Okay, it's a point for me. Period. The end. Just makes more sense. And I don't think we need stall calls, right? Like if you want to run away, I'm giving up a point.
Yeah. It's just I have a little personal thing against that. My last 2 years of college is just like, we're in a wrestling match. Don't you want to try to come take me down? Like, where are you going? Like get over here. It's just so like, if you think you can beat me, come over here and try to take me down. But it's like, I don't want to chase you. What am I doing here? We're not even wrestling.
Yes, I understand completely. All right, Vito Arujau, thank you very much again for coming on the podcast and sharing a little bit of your life with us. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later. Wait. Don't go anywhere. Before you hit that next button, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.